With the MLB draft being scheduled for June 10th, I don't quite have the time to go through all 30 teams individually for who they should draft. I do have enough time to go through the remaining picks, as well as the first competitive balance picks too. So for this video, I will be running down each team's common draft strategy, if they have any desperate needs, and then finally, quickly going over who they should draft and why they're a good selection. Makes sense? Well, let's start off with the Chicago White Sox, who control the number 11 pick in the draft. For the White Sox, they have a pretty obvious preference when it comes to their first round picks. They haven't drafted a high school player since 2012, opting to go with college draftees every year since then. They haven't quite had a bias for pitching or position players in this stretch, so the only restriction that this pick has is it pretty much has to be a college player. In terms of team needs, the White Sox aren't really desperate for anything at the MLB level. Prospect-wise, the White Sox have more positional prospects than pitching prospects, with 17 position prospects to pitchers. So, combining that balance at the MLB level with an imbalance at the prospect level, I think that this selection should be a pitcher. With this, the White Sox immediately make a surprise move to start off the video and draft Garrett Crochet from Tennessee. He's a lefty pitcher who stands at 6'6", 218 pounds, who throws a mid-90s fastball, as well as having a devastating slider and changeup. He did have some shoulder issues in 2019, as well as having some command issues with such a devastating arsenal. The White Sox, though, would be looking to draft Crochet with his incredibly high ceiling due to those pitches. If developed properly, Crochet is most definitely an ace. Next comes the Cincinnati Reds, who pretty much have no preference in terms of where they draft from, so no worries there. Positionally, they don't have any biases there either, so we can move on from that as well. So the only thing that matters is the current needs. The Reds have a nice core positionally, as well as having one of the better rotations in baseball. So, once again, this is where we go to the farm system to see if there's any desperate needs. Fortunately for the Reds, the system is dead even at 15-15 for position to pitcher, so best available is the best choice. Who is best available? That would be Garrett Mitchell from UCLA. Mitchell has a future at all 5 tools, already possessing great speed, a great arm, and a great ability to hit for average. He should develop naturally into a better fielder, and with his 6'3", 204-pound frame, his home run power should come along too if the Reds help him lift the ball more. You could argue that Michael Ciani is their center fielder of the future and leaves no role for Mitchell, but he has too high of a ceiling to ignore. Next up is the Giants, who have traditionally drafted college players, though have shown a tendency to go high school prospects at times, like drafting Heliot Ramos in 2017. There's no clear positional bias either, so I think the Giants are pretty much opting to go best available. Not even going to go over the MLB level, because the Giants have one clear need, and it's pitching. Of their top 30 prospects, pitchers are outnumbered 13-17, and only have Seth Corey as a top flight pitching prospect. With that in mind, the Giants should be going with high school pitcher Mick Abel. Abel has a mid-90s fastball, which should only become harder with a 6'5", 190-pound frame. He also has a fantastic slider, changeup, and an improving curveball. He does a great job commanding these pitches as well, and has a ceiling to be an ace pitcher for the Giants. Moving on, the 14th pick is the Texas Rangers. Historically, they do have a slight bias towards high school players, though aren't afraid to go college from time to time. They don't seem to have any bias towards drafting position players or pitchers either, mixing it a lot recently. As for their system, the Rangers have a quite solid positional setup, looking to have a strong outfield with Gallo and Calhoun, while infielders Solak and Guzman look nice in the infield. Prospect-wise, the position players very much outnumber the pitchers 19-11, and nearly all of the current rotation for the Rangers are in their 30s, so I don't see any reason why they wouldn't go for youthful pitching here. Luckily for them, this Texas team has a very promising Texas pitching prospect fall into their lap in Jared Kelly. His main draw is his fastball, which sits at the mid-90s range that can go up to 98 with little effort as needed. He also has a fantastic changeup which he throws with enough confidence at any situation, and wraps it up with an above-average slurve that should develop into another weapon in his arsenal. He may be a high schooler, but there's talks that he could be reaching the MLB quite quickly, as he has the pitches and the command to develop quickly in the Rangers system. The Phillies are up next, and they have some interesting draft trends. For the past 3 years, they've gone with exclusively college players. As for what those players play, well, the Phillies haven't actually drafted a pitcher since 2014. It has kinda shown at the MLB level since Nola so far has been their only strong pitching development, but Spencer Howard is looking to change that. As for the Phillies system-wise, they do have some pitching struggles, but the pitchers outnumber the positional prospects 16 to 14. Their top 10 prospects are nicely mixed, and although their positions look better than the pitching at the MLB level, it isn't enough to completely commit to pitching, especially with who's available at this point. With that, I think that the selection should be based on whoever is the best available. I'm really intrigued by Nick Bitsko, but if we're going best available, Heston Kjerstad is an easy choice. He has fantastic power, considered the second best in that category, only behind Torkelson. Although he likely wouldn't be a right fielder with Harper as their mainstay there, he provides a solid corner outfield game, so there should be no defensive issues. Next is the Cubs, and they are in a quite peculiar situation. They haven't drafted a high schooler since 2012, and have had some struggles in the development of pitching. With that said, drafting a college pitcher would be a little bit of a reach. Their farm system is also interesting, because even though the Cubs' rotation is aging at the big league level, their farm is more pitching oriented. Headlined by a really intriguing prospect in Braylon Marquez, adding another pitcher would make the farm shift even more to 18 pitchers compared to 12 position players, but the Cubs do need more quality pitching outside of Marquez. So with college pitchers being a reach, they are going to have to turn a new leaf and go with high school pitcher Nick Bitsko. One of the youngest pitchers in this draft, he is armed with a mid-90s fastball, an elite curveball, a decent changeup, all thrown with great command. The Red Sox are next, and they go in the opposite direction historically, primarily drafting high schoolers, but have recently tried out some college players as well. The Red Sox have a pretty poor farm system, mainly tailored to infielders, with prospects Jeter Downs, Tristan Casas, and Bobby Dalbec. Despite their need for pitchers, I still believe that it's a little bit of a reach to go for any pitchers here. With that said, the Red Sox do need a new high-ceiling prospect to talk about, so in going best available, they end up with Robert Hassell. Hassell is a left-handed hitter who has the best pure hitting ability within the class. Constantly hitting for high averages, his power is questionable, but can't be developed this early into his career. Defensively, he could stick in center, but maybe he'd be a better fit in right. Overall, the Red Sox would be looking at his high upside bat for this pick, but he can be molded into whatever role the Red Sox want him to take. Next up is the Arizona Diamondbacks, who should absolutely not be going with an outfielder, having a third of their top 30 prospects be outfielders. Though draft strategy wise, they've been drafting high schoolers recently, but will go college from time to time. They have a solid rotation at the MLB level, as well as having a firm positional core. Farm-wise, position players slightly overtake pitching, having 16 hitters compared to 14 pitchers in the top 30 prospect list. They do lack some frontline pitching prospect talent though, so I have the Diamondbacks taking Kay Cavalli from Oklahoma at 18. Cavalli works with a great mid-90s fastball, a strong low 80s curveball, a solid upper 80s slider, and a developing changeup to complete a strong 4-pitch mix. With this fantastic arsenal, however, comes a weakness in command, but if the Diamondbacks can rein that in, they have a future ace within their grasp. The Mets have a pretty clear strength for pitching, with their farm sporting 18 pitchers to 12 positional players. We of course know the Mets rotation is also very solid, so we're going to say no to pitching for this pick. They don't have any specific trends with their recent drafts, so pretty much the only restriction here is no pitching. With that said, I have the Mets drafting high school outfielder Crow-Armstrong with the 19th pick. The Mets may have a lot of outfielders now, but it shouldn't matter when drafting a high school prospect, as things can change a lot by the time they get called up. If you look at the farm system, the Mets only have 2 full outfield prospects, so he fills the farm need. As for Crow-Armstrong himself, he's a speedy outfielder who's absolutely fantastic defensively. Considered the best center fielder in the draft, he uses his speed to take great routes to balls, and has a solid arm to work in center. Offensively, he does struggle a bit power-wise, but he has great contact skills, which works well with his speed. For the final pick of the video, the Milwaukee Brewers have no real trends in terms of draft strategy. They do have a massive weakness in their farm system, however, and that is in pitching. The Brewers have a commonly perceived weak farm system, having no top 100 prospects, so making a correct choice here is important. So for the Brewers pick, Carmen Mlodzinski out of South Carolina is their selection. With a mid-90s fastball, as well as having a strong slider and changeup combination, he could have 3 strong pitches as he develops. He looked incredibly strong in the Cape Cod League, working well as a strike thrower who minimizes walks and maximizes strikeouts. His ceiling is uncertain, but he should be a pretty safe pick for the Brewers.